estate housing crisis? So we're thinking about that in November right now, and we're looking forward, going forward into the end of the year, now that the election is behind us. And we're like, what's going to happen? We're real estate brokers who've been doing this 20 years now, and we're based in Frisco, Texas, which is one of the fastest growing places in the country.
Yeah.
And people are wondering. They're like, hey, right? What's going on?
What
Is
do you
it
think?
safe to dip your toe back in the water now?
Yeah.
Because some people were on the sideline, and that commonly happens during election seasons, right? Like, there's kind of like this pause. But is the pause going to be a winter freeze? Or is it going to open up?
Yeah.
So tell us, real estate
I
broker
don't think
Shauna,
that
tell
we
us a
had
little bit.
a really big freeze by any stretch, right? I don't feel like we had a freeze. So, you know, personally, I like to follow Jim Gaines. He is a Texas A&M economist. I don't think I'm supposed to woo because
No, we
just
paid for it.
it.
No, we paid for the whoop times 2. We can whoop.
Yeah. But, you know, what he says is, yes, he feels like we are going to have a slowdown, a little bit of a slowdown in the home prices increasing. But unless we have a major economic event happen, you know, our market should remain strong and balanced.
Okay. And the market he was speaking on in particular, was that about just locally or statewide?
Dallas area.
Dallas
so just
metroplex.
Our specific Dallas metroplex.
Okay. Now, I'm a huge fan of big economic events. I really am. And I think those change the world dramatically. Okay?
Yeah.
And when that happens, I feel that the best markets in the country win. And for them to win, there has to be a lot of losers.
Yeah.
So when I'm looking at this, I do think there's going to be strong places that lose a lot of value real estate wise. I was reading an article that New York City is finally starting to come back up on rental rates, and prices were depressed there for properties.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's really a bad situation there. The hometown that I grew up in Binghamton, New York, for a long time was just going down in value. And I could see small towns in like Rust Belt areas really being hit hard by this crisis and just continuing to get hammered. And when those things happen, people migrate. And when they migrate, they leave those areas. So I do see areas that would underperform strongly, and they're going to way underperform in the housing market, and they'll have some real problems in underperforming markets. And then those people will migrate, especially because you do not have to live. Right now with COVID, you don't go to like physically to work. So if you have a job where you have that you can telecommute all of a sudden, why would you stay somewhere where it's cold, rainy, unemployment's high, you know, housing prices are bad? You have now this decision point and you can move. And I think a lot of people will be migrating, whether it happens to be in inner cities and there's strife and conflict and unrest. Like a lot of people don't want to go through that.
We started seeing this already, right? We've already started to see this, you know, as a result of COVID.
But I think it's going to be strongly exacerbated as people who hadn't made their mortgage payments because they put it off because of these things happening. And then we come out of Christmas, and all of a sudden after that, then the mortgages. So they typically don't do foreclosures during Christmas and during the holiday season, right? So they'll put that off. But imagine if you were behind like 3 months on your mortgage. You did one of these.
How do you catch that?
Yeah, you did one of these delay programs. And then like all of a sudden it's deferred, and it's whatever words they use. Eventually it has to get paid.
Right.
And these programs run out that are helping people that can't afford to be in places where they shouldn't be, and they have problems.
And I'm all about the help, but it's almost goes back to the bailout. Remember?
Yeah.
And
No, this is
it's really
a real
difficult. And how much do you keep assisting? And I think this assistance could backfire.
So it'll definitely backfire in areas that will underperform. So I think an area like the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex is going to actually be a huge winner. Because what we're going to see here specifically and directly in our city of Frisco, Texas, which is super fast growing, is I believe we'll see a lot of new people moving here from areas that are underperforming. So with every winner, it's kind of like that yin yang, right? So like with every positive action, there's an equal and opposite negative reaction. And there's a lot of losers across the country.
Right.
And then there's a lot of winners as well. But they tend to be concentrated. So you'll have a lot of small losing areas all over, and they'll be concentrated here. And hopefully that, the top 5, 10 markets people will be migrating to will do really, really well.
And our weather, something that we have here is we do have a little bit of a winter, but not much. And our weather, is great for the majority of the year. So.
Yeah, the markets that I would say are going to win overall are in good weather locations, so that's one of the keys, and in areas where population is sparse, and because we've talked about this, where people are moving to places with less population and more space.
Yes.
So I definitively see that as something that's going on.
Yeah.
And
agreed.
so those winning places, like I think Bozeman, Montana is going to be a winner. I think that Idaho, Boise?
There's Boise, and then I think that those you'll start to see even the outskirts of those areas.
So Charlotte, you can talk about that. People always point to that. People talk about like
Tennessee.
Nashville, Tennessee. There's like Knoxville, and there's some areas in there that are always on those lists.
Yeah.
If you're basically on the list of like fastest growing, most desirable places to live, they're on the upsurge. Coming out of this, looking at 2021, and on the downward, if you're not on that and you're on like the least desirable places to live, it's just gonna
Leave.
Yeah, get out
Move
of there.
here.
but come with money, please. Don't come like starving and having a problem. That has been one of the things that we've been extremely fortunate with in this area, is we've had a lot of people coming here like straight cash heavy.
Yeah, and even back when we had the crash in '08. We saw that, right? We saw people come here from Florida, but even our market here, if you look at how it compared to other parts of the country, I mean, we were pretty fortunate even then. Yes, we had foreclosures and all of that, but it wasn't anything near what you saw in other parts of the country. So I think we live in a very safe market.
And there's actually a website that we could chat in that is conservativemove.com, I believe. And we know those
Jim's friends.
Yeah, so we know them, and it's very interesting. And what that's all about is it's about people moving for political reasons. And they're moving from one location to the next location, mainly for their political views. Now, that's not, I wouldn't move for political views.
But there are people
lot of
who
people.
will. I was speaking to some people yesterday that had very strong views about this, and I mean,
things happen. So
Yeah.
we'll chat in that link, and we'll show their page real quick with Conservative Move. Now, there is probably the same exact thing on the other side with like Liberal Move as there is with Conservative Move, where people are moving from one place to another, and they want to be, human nature is to be around people that have similar like look, feel, ideas, right? Passions, hobbies as you. So if you're a hiker, you're probably going to live by the mountains and by people that like to hike as well, right? And you would associate with them. If you're a biker and you like to go cycling or on a motorcycle, you're going to be around those types of activities, right? And around those types of people. This is no different from that with Conservative Move. And it's just something that we should kind of show off there.
We should come up with Comfort Move. Like
Comfort?
Or I don't know.
But anyways, this whole thing is really about, is there a housing crisis? And it really does turn into migration patterns on a countrywide scale. Yeah. And as we look at this, I do think it'll also turn into a migration pattern from a larger standpoint. On Fox News today, I saw that they were talking about how Biden's policies are affecting tech companies and with the H-1B visas, and that social media companies were going to be lowering the pay rate in which you had to make to qualify for an H-1B visa for social media companies like Facebook and whatnot. So it would become more advantageous to bring people in on those visa programs in the Biden administration, which would bring talent from different areas, but not just within the U.S., but from abroad. Now, I'm all for talented people for sure moving to our country. People that want to be here and are trying and putting in effort
They're gonna
is
contribute.
amazing. Yeah,
Right.
and contributions are amazing, right? And it's going to be something interesting that now you'll see another migration pattern in a big way from probably outside the U.S. to the U.S. And you can have your opinion on it one way or the other,
Yeah.
but it will definitively be happening more so than it had the last 4
Right.
years. And you can pick good, bad, or otherwise, but that probably would end up helping the housing market if we have more people that want to be here. The more the population grows, so it's like supply and demand, right? If you have more people moving in, but like there's not more houses, then the prices are going to go up, right? And if like all of a sudden you have something where you have like less people, like my hometown, Binghamton, New York, they went through a real problem after we left. No, but like during that same time, what happened is they had
Took
too
the
many.
economy with you.
No, they had too many homes and not enough people. And what happened is all of a sudden, like the market's saturated with homes, right? And they ended up tearing down homes. And you see that happening in
Well,
different
did it
places.
go through a regentrification then when they did that?
Well, so it took homes off the market, and the city was helped by the college town. And so it has Binghamton University there, which is a large state university, and it's a desirable school for people that live and want to go to a New York State fun SUNY school. And so that actually totally helped the Binghamton economy because the school took off at the same time. But if it wasn't for the school, it would be like one of those ghost towns. It would be really, really scary. And you can imagine that same thing happening all over the country, and then kind of the reverse happening in places like this. That's why it grows.
Right.
So housing crisis, I guess it depends where you are.
Yeah, and if you consider the crisis being, there's not any homes available, because I think that there was a slowdown in people listing, and maybe they're going to still wait it out a little bit. So, you have more people moving here, and you're not going to have the homes.
So the word crisis could define
That's
if you were
kinda what
trying to
happened in
buy
Idaho,
it.
right? That
Yeah.
they don't have the supply.
When people think
the
housing
demand.
crisis, they normally think that prices are crashing,
Yeah.
but it's also a problem. So like in Boise, Idaho, right? You're saying that there's like no homes available and people want to buy them and they're having like multiple offers
Well, it's
galore.
kind of the same in Bozeman too.
It is.
Yeah, so it's interesting.
It certainly is.
That's kind of a crisis.
So how about a thumbs up if you like today's topic and chat
did.
in? You did?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, sure.
This is
I'll
good
go thumbs
stuff.
up.
It's
And
good to talk through and just kind of, think about what we feel is going to happen and do a little research, and
it helps prepare
it does help prepare for
you
sure.
as an agent for the future or a homeowner to know and to think about these things. Your home is your most important investment. Well, in most people's situation, it's the most valuable asset they have, right? And in a lot of cases, it's also a huge liability for other people. So if you're in the wrong part of this equation, then it's not a good thing. There's been all different times where all of a sudden the house goes from an asset to a liability when the market shifts. And that's a big liability in those cases. You've had people call you and they're upside down and they have like negative equity. And that's a very difficult thing to deal with. So that creates a crisis really, really
does.
quickly. So that kind of wraps it up. I hope that gives you some good ideas and helps you forecast something.
Yeah.
If you need anything, just like make sure you're working with an amazing realtor that truly cares. That's probably the most important thing.
And stays on top of the market conditions.
I agree. So let's go ahead and hit the bell and end the